Good morning, Bears. Let's do this. Hammurabi's Code. Primary source investigation to find out culture clues. Today we're going to focus on human rights. You're a human, I'm a human. And so do we all have human rights? In America, you're supposed to. How that plays out is sometimes different, but ideally means like if everything goes as it's supposed to, the United States has all people are created equal. Inalienable rights. Inalienable means you can't get rid of those rights, and the reason you can't is because God has given you those rights as a human being. And that's our Constitution of the United States. A lot of debate around that on whether you need the God part, but that's what our founders believed in, that because God gives you those rights, no man or government can take them away. A lot goes on in the Constitution. You're going to dive deep into that next year in U.S. history, and or actually it's 8th grade, I believe. But some of those foundations go all the way back to the Ten Commandments, the laws of Moses. We'll study that later this year. And even before that, or at least in the same time period, orally, these different cultures in the region that we're studying, we're starting to lay down laws. So today we're going to dive into, does the Hammurabi's Code give people human rights? Are all people equal in the days of Hammurabi? Let's dive in. How are we going to dive in? We're going to watch a little intro video just to paint the picture. Notice this scene right here is a beautiful thing to look at. We have geography right here. A lot of the things we've learned about this year. From this one little shot of this video, you can pick up some of the geography of the region. Now keep in mind, as we talk about primary sources, which is a source that you're looking at from the time period. So somebody's writing about an adventure they did back then. Artifact, like the steel that we're going to look at, is actually from the time period. That's a primary source. This video is a little bit tricky because it's a secondary source about Hammurabi's Code. It's a person made this video recently, and we can check the time on that source. We always want some of the more recent data when we're talking about modern analysis of historical facts. But we want the recent data, the time that something that was made closer to us, because they have newer findings. But we want them to use the oldest data, the data that's closest to the time of the event. The other thing that's interesting about this on primary and secondary source is this is a video of the actual period we are studying. But the period we are studying is 3,000 to 5,000 years old when these things were happening. A lot can happen geographically, so we cannot guarantee just because a video shows, oh look, it's all dry and arid here. It's possible that 3,000 years ago it was wet. Same with this video we're looking at now. Some of this could be man-made and systems. So these are just general overviews to keep in mind as we take a look at our secondary source, looking at the region we are studying. All right, let's get going on a little introduction to Hammurabi.
French archaeologists found it buried in the sands of what is now Iran in 1901. The pieces of a great pillar of black stone, carved in the ancient region of Mesopotamia more than 3,600 years earlier. At the top of the massive pillar, or stele, were two figures, the ancient Babylonian sun god, flames coming from his shoulders, and Hammurabi, the most famous king of Babylon. Hammurabi had turned Babylon into an empire, conquering independent city-states throughout the Fertile Crescent, the rich farmland between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. To establish order and unify all of these different cities and people, Hammurabi needed one universal set of laws to, as he wrote, bring about the rule of righteousness in the land to destroy the wicked and the evildoers, so that the strong should not harm the weak. More than 250 of those laws are carved in columns onto this stele, in characters and symbols, one of the oldest known written codes of conduct setting out rules of behavior and specific, often harsh punishments. If anyone is committing a robbery and is caught, then he shall be put to death, states law number 22. More than 30 laws called for the guilty to be put to death, sometimes in gruesome ways, by being impaled, burned, or thrown into water. That meant being tossed in the Euphrates River. If the accused drowned, it was seen as proof of guilt because the gods didn't save him or her. But if the river proved that the accused is not guilty and he escaped unhurt, reads the code, the accused was innocent, and then he who had brought the accusation shall be put to death. Causing a death was often punishable by death. If a builder constructed a house that collapsed and killed the homeowner, that builder shall be put to death. If the homeowner's son was killed in the collapse, the son of that builder shall be put to death. Punishment was often reciprocal. If a man put out the eye of another man, his eye shall be put out, reads law number 196, one of the most famous in that code. But eye for an eye justice wasn't applied equally. Punishments varied depending on the social class of both the accused and the accuser. If a higher class landowner put out the eye of a commoner, for example, he only had to pay a fine of 1 gold mina. According to the code, women in every social class had lower status than men. Several laws restricted what women could do, but others protected women's rights to inherit a field, a garden, or a house, and to divorce their husbands. A wife who could prove abandonment or neglect could take her dowry and go back to her father's house. Laws in the code cover liability, malpractice, trade, even the minimum wage to be paid to workers in specific occupations. 6 gur of corn per year for an ox driver, 8 gur for a cattle or sheep herder, 4 giras for a rope maker, and 5 giras for a potter. Elements of law and justice carved in the pillar are still found printed in modern law books, thousands of years later. The presumption of innocence, for example, and the right of 2 parties in dispute to bring their case before a judge and provide evidence and witnesses. It seems clear Hammurabi meant the code to stand as a permanent set of legal precedents. Most of the monument has survived for thousands of years, an ancient system of law and order set in stone.
That is a perfect little video for us, and it's going to give us some evidence for our activities today. Guess where else we're going to get our evidence? Directly from the primary source itself. There's a nice overview here. We're not going to read through that right now. It's a little wordy, but look down here. So keep in mind, this is a secondary source. All these words, because these are words that somebody else wrote to describe. Somebody in the modern era wrote this to describe this ancient primary source text. So secondary source, primary source. Now, translated, always be careful with the word translated. A lot of my students, when I say when are you getting your evidence from, or when is the time of the source, they'll put the translation date. So this translation into English, if you see a date like that, that's when they translated it. But the actual document itself, when you go to find it, you need to look into the text and see if you can find when it was written in the time period. Now keep in mind, by the time something was put onto a stone like this, or a tablet, or in the New Testament when we start studying papyri and things like that, by the time it was written down, it was probably memorized as an oral tradition. So oftentimes the teachings, when we get into Hinduism, the most recent written version of it might only be 500-700 years old, but those oral traditions go all the way back for thousands of years. All right, code of laws. So what we're going to do here is you're going to use this code of laws. You're going to scan it, read some of it, and see if you can find evidence. I can tell you this, you will find the evidence before 30. And look at it here. If a chieftain or a man leaves his house, garden, and field and hires it out, and someone else takes possession of his house, garden, and field and uses it for 3 years, if the first owner returns and claims his house, garden, and field, it should not be given to him. But he who has taken possession of it and used it shall continue to use it. Now in that one sentence, thinking about our GRAPES acronym, we're going to focus on society today. We're going to focus on social status, human rights today. Tomorrow we're going to do a different topic. But just in this one, just to cover some of our grapes, do you see any geography here? Is there any geography in that sentence? Do you see anything about agriculture, maybe, in this sentence? Or even politics? Remember, politics is who rules, kings, chiefs, things like that, lords. So right in this sentence, you can see they have chieftains. That's interesting. They have gardens. Gardens are agriculture. So they have houses, a little technology there. Fields, so even bigger than a garden is a field. So we see that they have agriculture. And you might even see, sometimes you might see some economics around there. Hiring out, what do you pay? You have to pay somebody when you hire somebody. So that means people have jobs. So in that one sentence, we get a lot of information about their society. So now, what our focus is, let's go open up our slideshow. Between 1 and 30, I promise, you can find evidence to support a claim were all people equal at the time of Hammurabi. So I want you to find one piece of evidence from the text, so somewhere in the laws. And if you were paying attention during the video, you can go back and watch it. The link is in there. There was a little piece of evidence from the video. Now when you quote from the video, your cited evidence from the video can be a paraphrase. You just need to say, in the video they said, and you can just kind of say what you heard them say. But if you're going to cite from this, you're going to copy it, and you're going to paste this into your slideshow. So let's go check out our slideshows. Get those opened up. Oh, I don't want to do that one. I would lose my groups. Back over here. We'll do that. Remember, it's over to the right. Hammurabi Code, creature bonus. Let's use somebody from period 8 today, just for fun. In progress. Pop on down. Magnolia has not opened it. Robert, we use all the time. Jaylene has not opened it. David, come on, let's get going. I know it's only Tuesday. Let's go with Sebastian H. So Sebastian is a little bit of a Halloween theme going. Remember, we don't celebrate Halloween, but everybody to each their own. You're welcome to have some fun, but we will do our scientifically based mythological creature activity on Thursday and Friday. So let's come down to here's our overview, to our human rights slide, and I want that to move all the way to the top. Remember, our directions will move farther down as the week goes. If you know what to do, you can actually get them out of the way now. So in your human rights slide, we now know what human rights are. Human rights are moral principles or norms that describe certain standard of human behavior and are regularly protected in municipal and international law. So what we want to say, we want to answer this. At time of Ham Code, were all people equal? That's our question. So what are you going to do? You have this slide. First thing you want to do is find your evidence. If you remember something from the video, go ahead and write that out now. If you can then come in here and find your evidence that shows why you think they were equal or they were not equal. All right, let's see. So everybody, let's get that going right now. Then we'll come back, check on your work. Move your human rights slide to the top. Come into Ham Code, which is located in our groups. Click the link. If you need to go back and check the video, you can. Hopefully you remember, because they did mention something in the video that would give you a clue. So one piece of evidence from the video, one piece of evidence from the Hammurabi's Code itself. Make your claim, present your evidence, give your reasoning, wrap up with a conclusion, and a beautiful CER for today. All right, guys, let's get working. Over and out.